Joining me now is my Friday panel, New South Wales One Nation leader Tania Mihailuk and Christy McSweeney, Managing Director of PR Council. Hi to both of you. Thank you so much for joining us. I want to firstly get your reactions to today's debate. Tania, surely this is it for Joe Biden. Do you think realistically he can last until November?
Oh, look, he's going to have to last till November. I think the ship has well and truly sailed for the Democrats in finding another candidate. I think it's too late. I think it's interesting, of course, that you've got Democrat Party officials and Democrat sympathetic commentators coming out and suggesting this idea that they're now looking for an alternative. Yeah. They've got a convention in August, but let's be realistic. They've invested heavily in Biden. He is the incumbent president. They've got nowhere to go now, okay? And I think it's amazing that you're seeing the people that have been, coming out swinging with a bat have been his own side. Trump supporters don't even have to do the work after the debate, okay? It's the Democrat Party officials, Obama's former advisor, all the commentators coming out muttering that they want him to go. So, look, disunity is death in politics. And if anything the Democrats can do now is just, they're going to have to come together, work out a plan, minimise Biden's appearances moving forward. I mean, they wanted the debate, which is baffling in itself. They wanted this. They know what they've got with him, and they know it's a disastrous result. So I can only imagine there won't be too many debates moving forward. It'd be interesting to see whether the September debate goes ahead. But the convention will be the next big test for them in August because he will have to play a role there. They're going to have to bring out all their usual celebrities and party officials and back him in. It's way too late for the Democrats to change their chief. They're stuck with him. Yeah, well, they're going to have to prop him up, not only through celebrities, but in other ways. As we saw today, I mean, he's likened to a space cadet. Seriously. Christy, from a PR perspective, how damaging was today's debate, do you think, for Team Biden? How can they seriously come back from this between now and November?
They are going to have to stay with the decision they've made, which is to give Joe Biden a second term. The Democrats knew going into the opening of nominations period, when they were starting to talk about a second four-year run, that he wasn't up to it. Some of them have come out today. There's been open commentary, but they let him make up his own mind. They failed to give him the best advice. He didn't make the decision that he should have made. It is unspinnable, isn't it? Absolutely unspinnable. And if I went off into the forest for a week and prepared and came out that way, I would get the sack from anything I set out to do. It was absolute disgrace. The leader of the free world. Trump came off strong, presidential. Some of the content that he said was possibly questionable, but he delivered it articulately, very strong. He was on message, and it was a great tactic. It was a great strategy by the Trump campaign team. They knew that given enough slack, Joe Biden would make those errors, and they've certainly played that. The Republicans have been comparatively quiet this afternoon. Yes. All the focus is on the Democratic Party and what they're going to do.
That is a very good point because they have indeed, as you said, succeeded. They took that step back. They haven't had to do anything. They don't need to do anything because Joe Biden did the work for them. Absolutely. Look, we'll have more analysis on this later in the program, so stay tuned. But let's move on because the number of people struggling to pay electricity bills jumped 18% between 2022 and 2023. That's according to the ACCC. Now, these statistics, I mean, they paint a very bleak picture. As of September last year, more than 270,000 households were either receiving concessions on payment plans or both. Tania, we've got Albanese and Chris Bowen constantly telling us, so don't worry, the race to renewables, you're going to see your power bills go down. Well, actually, they've gone in the other direction and people genuinely need help.
Well, you've got 250 million, or more than 250 million households that are doing it tough. They're either paying concession or electricity payments or they're on some sort of payment plan. This is a terrible indictment on the Albanese government and on Bowen himself because they went into the election in 2022 promising that they would reduce electricity prices. They said that renewables would be the only way to do so. We can now see renewables have cost an absolute bomb for the Australian public. I mean, we're talking about $60 billion black hole in terms of renewable projects for them to meet their 2030 target. These renewable energy zones are going to continue to cost enormous amount of money, enormous pressure on these electricity bills. And, you know, on top of that, you've got this $300 gift. You know, they're going to credit people with a $300 allowance, or so to speak, for their electricity bills. That'll add inflationary pressures. We know that. That's going to continue to put pressure on interest rates, and then people they'll get a double whammy. So not only are we talking about high electricity prices, we're talking about mortgage repayments, higher rent, and so forth. So, you know, Bowen has been disastrous in the way he's managed this, and the fact that he even came out to speak on this and talk about and respond to what they has said today is unbelievable. Absolutely, the nerve of him. He just doesn't read the room very well at all. They own this, the Labor Party, because they made promises that they can't keep, and they need to be held accountable to the way they've mismanaged electricity prices in a country that is resource-rich, Danica. We are resource-rich. We shouldn't be paying these type of bills.
There is an abundance of resources in this country, and here we are in this position. And Christy, you know, where's that $275 in energy bill relief that we were promised? The government was elected on this cost of living mandate, yet this renewable green energy quest seems to be driving Australians to the wall. Would you agree?
Well, at least the government stopped saying you can't have your $275 or reduction in energy bill because of the war in Ukraine.
Yes.
That's no excuse. You will note in Parliament this week the government tried very, very hard to run an attack around nuclear energy, and they tried very, very hard to message into all of their questions and all of their responses the energy relief, which starts on the 1st of July, that $300. Now, that only lasted one day, so that demonstrates to you that it wasn't getting a take-up in the media, it wasn't getting a take-up with currency, and it probably wasn't getting a take-up in focus groups or polls that are in the market. The Coalition won last week firmly with their nuclear announcement. The government didn't get any credit for what they saw as a pivotal budget announcement that they were seeking to promote in this last week of Parliament. It was a failure, and then, of course, the next day they heralded their role in bringing home an activist hacker who put international security at risk.
Yes, well, let's talk about that, because, of course, as cost of living goes up, inflation went up this week. They rolled out the welcome mat, didn't they, for Julian Assange as he arrived back in Australia. Tanya, do you think that Labor should have inserted itself into the circus there?
Oh, they've done so deliberately. The fact that Albanese boasted about being the first person that Assange called, you know, that's extraordinary. And how appalling, I think, and unbecoming of a Prime Minister to admit that or to say that publicly. The idea that somebody that, you know, let's be honest, let's be clear about this. America's our ally. We actually have a lot of shared military operations with them. What he did, and I know there are people that are very sympathetic to Assange, but let's be clear, in the end, he leaked very sensitive documentation that's compromised people's lives, okay? And he's not a hero, a war hero, okay? And the idea that, you know, the sort of red carpet was put out for him this week.
Ridiculous.
And Albanese's out there taking the phone call, all the, you know, Labor ministers, you've got Kevin Rudd, everybody running around him. It's appalling.
It is
and it's an appalling message, and it's been deliberately used to absolutely deflect from what's really happening in Australia.
Yes.
And it's also a political strategy on the part of Albanese, because he wants to show young people in Australia, look at me,
it's
look
for the Greens vote.
I've saved Assange. That's right.
Absolutely. Well, look at this cartoon in today's Australian by Johannes Leek. I think he summed it up perfectly. Free meals for the homeless, and then in strolls Albanese. Great, I freed Julian Assange. Christy, I think that sums it up perfectly, exactly what we're saying here. Inflation's going up, cost of living's up, but it's all right. We've rolled out the red carpet for a convicted felon.
After the flat landing of the question time promotion of the energy relief on 1st of July being overshadowed by the Coalition's nuclear energy announcement and the positive polls around that, the government is doing everything they can to not talk about cost of living. They know that energy relief hasn't landed because it's not making a dent to people, and it won't. And I think that the insertion of the government into Julian Assange and the hero's welcome and the posting of the photograph on social media of the Prime Minister being the first call, and I've also seen photos released to media of both of our ambassadors on the jet with Julian Assange, our ambassador to the UK, Stephen Smith, and our ambassador to the US, Kevin Rudd. There is no reason why the Australian government needs to spend this many resources and herald the arrival of this man back into Australia. It's a deflection, it's a distraction, and it's a bubble issue for their base and for certain elements of the left-wing based media, and it has nothing relatable to the average Australian.
No, it's all very cushy, isn't it? Very all good friends. Christy McSweeney, Tania Mihailuk, unfortunately have to leave it there. Thank you so much for joining us on the show this evening. Really appreciate it.